Hello and welcome to this episode of Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And this week we are looking at beef farming and also clover and maybe a bit of social farming as well. And our expert in the field, excuse the pun, is Oliver Dixon, a Mayo man. Oliver, thank you very much for joining us and putting up with my terrible jokes. But I guess give people kind of a lay of the land, what type of livestock are you farming and whereabouts exactly in Mayo are you and how many acres would you be farming?
Okay, I'm organic 12 years and I have 43 hectares farmed. It's about 110 acres, 9 or 10 acres. Now I have an out farm that's 11 miles away from me. I'm outside Clamorris, 5 miles outside Clamorris in Mayo, and then my out farm is 11 miles away from me, and there's about 40 acres of grazing land on that. There's forestry on it as well.
It's a beautiful part of the world as well. I'd say there's people listening and closing their eyes and thinking, God, I'd love to be in Mayo now. Love to be there.
Yeah.
But talk me through your system. So you have suckler cattle and it's kind of suckler to beef system that you run.
Yeah, everything born on the farm is raised and finished beef. They mainly go to Slaney Meats in Wexford, and I had about 24 cows when I went organic. So I was kind of keeping that number, and I'd be selling about 25 animals per year. And I had some autumn calvers, and over the last couple of years now, that has dwindled down. So I've just calved 14 cows this spring, and I think it's my last calving. I'm going to look at buying in the weanlings from here on.
We might come back to that, but I'm kind of interested in what you've been at, because you talked as well that you had done bull beef as well over the years. So you've tried kind of nearly a little bit of everything in terms of beef farming. So, and you've come back, you came into organics 12 years ago. I mean, is it that you're not afraid to try different things, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, when it was conventional farming, I did try many different things, from same thing again, suckler to finishing, selling weanlings, buying stores to finish, selling stores, buying weanlings, selling them in stores, and back in 2000 I was doing bull beef, exported to Italy. So yeah, I've tried a few systems, and then in about 2007-8, before I went organic in 2010, I went over to Angus from having Belgian Blues and limousines. So I went all Angus then, because I was getting pretty disillusioned with beef prices and meal prices back then, and it didn't matter how much I gave out about it, nothing changed. So I decided to try and go back to finishing off the grass. So that's why I went to Angus. And at the time, I suppose not too many people were doing that. I remember a neighbour of mine telling me I was mad that I wouldn't get paid for them. But I kind of think the way of thinking I have is, well, I'll find out. I'll try it and I'll find out. And then I'll know.
So how has it gone for you? Because I was reading a week or two ago and there was a newspaper headline and it was making out that it was a miraculous event that beef prices for one beef factory had just scraped the €5 per kilo mark. So how are you finding it in selling your organic beef?
It's been interesting to see the price of, let's say, organic compared to conventional. I sell to John Brennan to Slaney Meats in Wexford, and I just killed cattle there now last week, 10 cattle, and I got $5.60 a kilo flat price. So there was 5, they were all Angus, there was 5 hours, 5 O's in it. They'd all pretty good fat cover, there were 4s. So I was pretty happy with that. All off clover silage, no meal.
That's brilliant. But
Yeah.
does that and what age do you typically finish them at?
I've had Angus cattle going at 20 months, right up to 36. But the last batch that went there, they were all they were the February born calves, so they'd be 25, 6 months. And there was 3 of them that were bought 2 years ago, so they were 30 months.
Were you happy with the prices?
I was happy with the kill out. Happy with what they come into. They come into over 1,800, which would be on an average price is the best price that I've got so far since I went organic. And like down through the years, we had good years there of our organic price. It would be 5 to be hitting 5, where it wouldn't be heard of in conventional. It's like this time last year I was getting 5, and I remember when I came in back in 2011 and 12 when I had my license and I started selling organically. I remember getting 540 for heifers, which was a great price at the time.
Were the neighbors who were saying that you were mad, were they kind of thinking, oh, maybe he's not so mad now?
I don't know. I didn't tell them.
Were you just chatting to them and the check just happened to fall out of your pocket or that kind of thing, the kill out cheat? Oops, how did that get there?
Yeah. So in the last couple of years, the gap has really shortened, all right, between conventional and organic. But the advantage for organic was there was a flat price, and it was up to 36 months. So that kind of took the bad look off it. But yet, as I said to you before, there's plenty of room for giving out about beef prices, and we should be getting more. There's no doubt about it for our beef. Like when, let's say, you're producing grass-fed organic beef that you cannot go into the butcher shop and buy it. You cannot get it. You just can't get it. So we should be getting more for the product that's being produced. That's like it's you couldn't get any cleaner and natural.
If you obviously, like you said, there's always room for giving out about prices, but if you were getting the best prices that you ever got, and if your system seems to be working for you, why are you thinking of changing it?
I like finishing, and I've been thinking about buying in the weanlings this last couple of years, and yeah, it'll be a bit strange to let the cows go, all right, but I feel it's time to change it up and to try and grow as good a quality silage as possible. So if I can perfect that, keep perfecting that, and keep finishing cattle out of the shed without any meal, like that's a great plus straight away. And I do believe that red clover silage is the hidden secret.
So some of the figures around red clover are just phenomenal in terms of like the protein element, but also the nitrogen fixation element that they can bring as well. I mean, when did you start looking into sowing clover, and how did you go about it? Did you try a few different ways? Did you try over sowing, and did you try ploughing? Because there's a lot of talk about clover right now because of the scheme that's come out recently.
Yeah, well, the first time I ever put in clover before I went organic was white clover. I did that through, I mixed it in the slurry tank and spread it with the tanker, and it worked a dream. It was fantastic. I did another field. I did an over sowing. I made the mistake of, like, it took off, and but I made the mistake of not putting in grazing it, and it didn't work. So the first field I did with clover, there's 6 acres in it, and I had I tried oats and peas the first year. I did it for 2 years, combined it, and then the third year I put it. That was in 2013. I put it in red clover. It was ploughed, reseeded, full reseed, and that's 9 years in its 9th year now. That particular field,
That's incredible, because it's only meant to persist for about 5 years.
Yeah. Now it is dwindling out of it. It's fairly dwindling out of it. So that field, I am going to stitch it. So then in 2019, I had a 7-acre field that, again, I did oats and peas in it. I did it as a forage crop. I did it as a harvesting crop 1 year, and then the following year I did oats and peas in it again, and baled it. And I put in red start then for the back end of grazing. And then in 2019, I put red clover in it.
And what's I'm wondering, do you have a certain amount of kg of seed per hectare that you aim to get out? Or is there a certain type of year that you think works best if you're oversowing red clover?
I've never oversown red clover. It's always been full reseeds.
Okay.
And it's between 12 and 14 kilos per acre. It's a mix. There's grass seeds in that as well, and there's a certain amount of white clover in it. And then there's about 4 kilos of red clover in it. And I'll find out this year now, this field that I'm going to try and stitch in and see how that works.
Okay.
And then I have another 6-acre field this year. I'm going to cut silage off it. I'll be cutting silage in about 10 days. And that field, then I'm going to do a full reseed on it.
And
So
typically, how many cuts of silage per year would you be aiming to get off the red clover sorts?
since I started, I've been getting 3 cuts a year. Last year was the first year I got 4 cuts.
Wow.
Now,
And how many bales is it averaging?
on average, I'm getting 6 bales per acre per cut, on average. Now, that can go up a bit. First cuts are normally heavier, you have more grass in them. But then after that, then the minute you cut the first cut, second cut, then you'll see the clover is coming, because we're coming into the 13 degrees, then clover needs that for growing. And the nitrogen then that's stored in the ground, it won't leach. It'll be held in the soil. So that, you can see that working right over the winter. And like the fields out there now they're in great shape. You'd actually think I was spreading nitrogen on them, but I don't. They're in really good shape. It kind of amazes me every year of how, like, the grass really comes this time of year. And once you cut it, it's like overnight, you'll see the clover leaves coming again. So it's an amazing crop. Now, last year, the last 2 cuts, I don't think my contractor was that happy with me, because we're getting about 4 bales to the acre, 3 bales, 4 bales, but it was quality stuff, like.
And is it worth it for you as well, because you're not buying any meal?
Absolutely, yeah. This is the first year that I've really become a believer that I don't need meal, especially with the results of the cattle that came back there. They were all there were 4 equal, 4 plus, 3 plus, 4 minus, 4s, 4. They're all 4, so it's like there's really good cover on them. And like last year, I did feed some meal, but the price was the price of meal last year was about $5.40 a ton, I think. And this year, the last time I heard, it was over 600.
Yeah.
So there was no way I was going to buy meal this year.
I guess we're doing a tiny bit of a handbrake turn, because another element to your farm. I mean, but I feel like your whole collective approach to your farm is very thoughtful in what you do. So I don't think it's that big a leap. And because another element that you do is social farming. So can you explain, maybe someone who hasn't come across social farming, can you just explain a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, we do social farming. At the moment, we have 2 participants from Western Care. They come every Friday from 10:30 to 3:00, and the routine is they come in, put away their sandwiches, we have a cup of tea, and we talk about what we're going to do for the day. So we have a kitchen garden, and depending on the time of year, what's for doing, cattle for feeding, fences for moving, changing cattle, cutting wood. So there's fencing, all that kind of stuff, and they participate in this. So it's a chance for people that um, never get the chance, let's say, to be
Yeah.
out on a farm and to be inclusive. So our first participants was there back in 2019. We had two Syrian farmers. They live in Clamars with their families, and they were our first participants. And it was amazing to hear them from where they came from. One was a sheep farmer, and the other was an olive tree farmer.
Right.
So it was great to see them, and so that they were our first. Now the two lads now we have, they're coming to us for the last 2.5 years. So
And is
it's
that,
yeah,
yeah, I wonder if that does that add a kind of a nice an element to your farm as well? Is it nice to share what's going on with other people?
yeah, and it's it really is. It's a great to see how little things and how they can, especially the two lads now, that they can develop with. It's like fixing the lawnmower the other day, and there were the three of us stuck in under it. Like, where else would they get the opportunity to do that? So it is, yeah.
I guess it gives you something to talk about as well. Like, 'cause I've come across social farming before, and people maybe with mental health difficulties or suffering from depression as well, um, would would be enrolled in social farming, and they can find it very helpful because they're outside, they're in fresh air, they're doing something, but it's a kind of a nice task orientated as well. And for a lot of them, they can sort of see growth happening, whether that's calves or lambs being born, or whether that's even just planting lettuce. It gives them a kind of a sense of power and control over something, as simple as growing a plant, and a sense of agency that maybe they don't feel in other elements of their life.
Absolutely, and it could be as simple as somebody putting on the kettle for a cup of tea.
Yeah.
They may not get that chance in their care home or wherever they might be from. But it depends on, like, you can have people from rehab, um, like you said, people that are maybe from mental health challenges or whatever, that there's a program that they can come and get involved with social farming. Now, the big one here for us here in Mayo is Western Care. So we have a lot of interaction with Western Care, and they work with Southwest Mayo Development, which works with Social Farming Ireland. So there's great support, and I'd encourage any farmer to have a look into it. And like, there's training to be done in it, but it's worth it in that you get to see how people react to coming onto your farm and spending that time out in the open. And like that with planting, like, now we're just a kitchen garden, um, but you have natural endorphins that can be released by just working with soil. So there's a whole load of feel good factor in that.
We talked earlier, and you said you're, is it the third generation on your farm in Mayo? What do you think previous generations would think, looking at what you're up to today?
Yeah, well, I guess like, when I think back of my father, let's say, and when he was farming, let's say, like, he bought the other farm that's 11 miles away. He came back, he worked in England during the war. And I grew up listening to him telling me stories about working there, and all he wanted to do was make enough money to buy land to come home and farm it. So, like, he was really, that's all he wanted to ever do.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, back then you didn't have this, this real intensive farming and fertilizer, and it was very much done more naturally. And that's what I like about organic farming. Um, like, I was never really one into sprays. chemicals. I suppose really because I wasn't a tillage farmer, maybe I would be if I was, but I did put out my fair share of fertilizer. But I'm thrilled that I'm not now. Like a lot of this fertilizer talk is going way over my head because I don't spread that anymore, you know. And even talking to some farmers, it's like it goes over their head. They don't understand it, you know. So um, it's to change is not easy. And when I went organic, I thought about it for long enough. Um, but when I decided on it, I embraced it and decided that, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And
Yeah.
that's what I thought of doing. And it has its challenges, there's no doubt. And you learn a lot. Well, one of the big things it did for me was it got me really interested back in farming again. Whereas I was getting disillusioned and getting disinterested with it. So it's like now I find you're really you're planning a few years ahead all the time. And you're like, for me now at the moment, making the decision to get out of the cows and buy the weanlings and try and specialize in finishing in beef and trying to specialize in growing good silage. So they're my two main focuses, let's say, going forward. So that gives an excitement for me to do that.
Okay. Well, Oliver, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. Yeah, and sure, we might get up there for a farm walk or something at some stage. We'd love to
Yeah,
see all your red clover. It'd be brilliant. But
yeah.
for anyone listening, we've been talking to Oliver Dixon, and this has been the Organic Matters podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And for anyone who wants to find out more about organics, you can visit www.irishorganicassociation.ie.